everyone. It is Friday morning and it's smack bang in the middle of my final year of medicine. So we've got 2.5 rotations done and 2.5 to go. I'm in the middle of my gen med rotation at the moment. My final exams are in 7 weeks and they are 12 OSCEs all in one day. So I thought I'd take you guys along with me for a day in my life as a med student. It is difficult to pick a day to do this because each day is a little bit different. Even with a different day of the week, it's slightly different, but it is 6:15 and first thing is off to the gym.
Hi guys, welcome to Amelia's Becc and Chapter. Thanks guys.
life video. I'm on the Gen Med ward this week. I'm with Gen Med A, so we have 3 different teams, A, B and C, who cover general medical patients at the hospital. It's a small team, it's 1 consultant, 1 reg and 1 intern, and there's 2 med students, Anna and I. We show up at 8:30, which is probably the craziest start that you'll get in medicine. 8:30 is pretty late, and the ward rounds don't actually start until 9 o'clock. So you just do some jobs and get ready for the ward rounds before they start at 9. We went to the gym this morning, as you saw, and I try to do a little bit of study in the morning. At the moment, that's in the form of just revising basically my sort of OSCE approach for different OSCEs, which only takes like 10 minutes unless I go off on a tangent and try and research something that I'm not feeling completely confident with. So even though our ward round started at 9, we actually ran off at 9:15 to go down to a talk in the Holman Clinic from a hematologist. He and a team had created a study that showed the positive effects of having an IV iron transfusion after you've had a surgery and had some blood loss. And that's for people above the threshold for needing to be transfused. In that case, they would get a transfusion. So in our hospital, that's generally above 70 unless you have some other comorbidities. And also, of course, if they've actually dropped their hemoglobin below a normal range, which was 120 in the study. So that was really interesting to see, and they didn't report any negative side effects to having the IV iron post-op, and they showed better outcomes. So that's really fantastic, because optimizing the patient in terms of anemia pre-op can be a bit of a logistical problem, mainly around patients who are more rural, who have to travel in for investigations and then travel in for treatment and potentially postpone their surgeries. So the post-op option is a really practical one for patients. And we've all been warned in the last few years about the dangers of transfusion. So we only transfuse if it's absolutely necessary. Yeah, so that's good news. So we had that talk, then we came back to the wards. We joined back in with the ward round, and on Fridays, the consultant sees the new patients first, and then the consultant leaves after he's done all the new patients, and the rest of the team go and see the rest of the patients for the day. We got back and joined the ward round, and we had time to see 1 patient before we had a family meeting. And this family meeting was centered around a patient who's suffering chronic alcohol abuse. So there was a bit of tough love in there, setting some pretty strict rules about going cold turkey and putting restrictions on her to make the temptation less, and even as far as having less access to money and transport and things like that. So it's all extremely strict. Went back and continued the ward round. Got to see 1 more patient before we had another family meeting at 11, and that one went for half an hour, at which time we then went to our multidisciplinary meeting, which happens every day on the medical wards. And it's really great because the team of doctors sit down with the nurses and the physios, the occupational therapists and other allied health, and they discuss the patients holistically. So I think that's a really great system. It's a really efficient way to make sure everybody's on the same page. That went till about 12, and then we jumped back on the ward round and saw another 3 or 4 patients, and it's now 1 o'clock and I have just left for lunch. I actually had planned my normal Friday volunteer shoot with my client from the library who has dyslexia. We're trying to transition him into the workforce, so we need to lift his literacy skills in particular. He sent me a message and said he couldn't make it in, so we postponed that till next week. We were also going to have an OSCE shoot with our 4th year students this afternoon. I've gone from giving 2 tutoring sessions today to none, but that's okay for me because it means that I get a lunch break, which is really nice. So that's what we're doing now. We're just going out for another coffee, even though we had one this morning, thinking that I wasn't going to get lunch. So yeah, we're just going to find somewhere to park in the rain when everybody else in Launceston is trying to get a good park. Have a coffee. I usually update my logbook at lunchtime, so I'll do that. I'll logbook for those of you guys who haven't seen me before. We log 2 patients that we see per day. We put in their case in brief, and then we add a paragraph or 2 of relevant research. And that's something you have to do on every rotation. Whew. So we'll do lunch, and then after that I'm going straight back to the ward for continuing the ward round with the team minus the consultant, and we see all of the patients that aren't new on the ward. I'm doing my own OSCE study too with a friend this afternoon, so I'll talk to you guys after that, and that's supposed to be at 3:30, so we'll see if I can get away from the wards to do that, and if not we might have to do it a bit later. Okay, we gotta park. Bye! These are the OSCE rooms, very practice. Blood pressure cuff, ophthalmoscope, otoscope, hospital. So yeah, I'm just about to do OSCE practice with James. We'll give each other 2 stations each to practice. It'll take us about 45 minutes. The rest of the hallway is filled with more rooms like this. Generally offices on that side. Just more of the same OSCE rooms. And wind shop. The OSCE practice is done. Ooh. We did 2 stations each, so I gave James a delirium case caused by most likely UTI or sepsis, and also a case that was sort of palliative care, end of life communication. There was a discussion with a daughter about her father having his nasogastric tube removed when it was deemed to be causing more harm than good, and he was transitioned into a palliative care, non-curative phase of his care. I think they're very fitty stations. And he gave me a station on hemoptysis and a station with a patient who had a neck of femur fracture, but you had to talk to the assessor as you did it, so all medical terminology, and you had to fire out what the important points were on the history examination, how you manage it, and investigations and prognosis. Oh yeah, and for any of you guys who are not familiar with what an OSCE is, it's just a faith consultation. It's basically our main way that we're assessed as medical students. So I'll show you the one that James gave me for an example. 63-year-old male with hemoptysis, coughing up blood. You get 2 minutes reading time. So these are the notes that I wrote. Mainly in my reading time, and then you sort of add to them as you go if you want to keep notes. I like keeping notes during, because usually what you do in the diagnostic stations is you get 6 minutes to take a history, and then you get asked for examination findings, give your differentials, and you're usually asked to give at least 3, more like 5 is better. Then you ask for investigations, and then you outline your management plan in that last 2 minutes. So it's very full on, but actually really fun to do if you take the pressure away from the fact that it determines whether or not you're going to get a degree or not. So yeah, they're all good stations. We're going to practice again on Sunday because we actually have a mock OSCE that the school puts on next Thursday. Some doctors from the hospital come in to be the assessors, and some of the 4th years are the actors for us. So it's a really good opportunity, and it takes a lot of effort, so it's really nice that they put that on for us, because I think it makes a big difference to all of us for our exams at the end of the year if we can have that proper practice. It is 5 o'clock now. We got off the wards early. It was about 3 o'clock. We got back to the wards. Our intern gave us a tutorial on palliative care and end of life discussions as well, which is really helpful. So I'm just writing some notes up on that until Arian gets here, and then we'll head home. When I go home after a day, I usually take at least an hour to just relax and do nothing. I find it's ultimately the most productive way. If I go home and just start working, then I'm really slow and it all evens out. So yeah, I always go home and have a break and get some food first, and then I'll do a little bit of revision later. But yeah, now it's 5 o'clock and I feel like I got a lot done today, and it's time to go home. the day. Thank you so much for watching my day in the life of a med student video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some insights into what it's like to be a med student in Australia, and I will see you guys in my next video.